Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday on the Daily Huddle, where we talk about all things relationships and communication. Before we get started today, Terry, I've just picked up woodworking and I've been building furniture, right? Well, it's a really sad story. This woodworker, he cut off his hand, the left hand, actually, He went to the doctor and the doctor said, he's going to be all right.
That's so stupid.
But you're laughing, which is the point.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that was good. We need to have a daily huddle where we show all the furniture that you've made. I'm going to be the host and you're going to be the guest, and we're going to have pictures.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Here we are. We have a wonderful guest today. But before I turn it over to Tara to introduce him, I want to get us grounded with a few questions to get started. And I'm going to, of course, start with Andrea because we haven't seen her in a while. Andrea, how are you and what are you grateful for?
Good morning, Catherine. I am the way I say I am. As I was yesterday, I am today inspired. That's how I am. And the second one was grateful for. As I was yesterday, I'm grateful for being here, being with you guys. I'm back. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Tom. Tom, where are you and who will you hug today?
Well, Catherine, I am right here, present. And whom I will hug, I don't know. I haven't really decided. That's a great question.
Mystery.
Yeah, I'm going to see my barber later today. It's not really a hugging relationship, but I will just figuratively give him a hug. It's always good to catch up with him.
I love it. You might find yourself in a surprise hug today because I asked you that question, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, thank you.
And the last one, I'm going to ask you, Tara, what time is it?
Let me see. The time is now, the only time that counts, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful that you all are here with us right now, the only place that there ever is, the only time that there ever is. And I'm excited for what's to come. So Tara, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Ben and let's get started.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Every once in a while, I invite a guest on to the Daily Huddle that I think, you know what? It's a long shot. They're rubbing elbows with celebrities, but I'm going to give it a shot. And today we have one of those guests, and his name is Ben Gioia. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Ben, and then we are going to let him bring some value to our time this morning. Ben is a 4-time best-selling author, podcast, and international radio show host. His teachings are used by more than 80,000 leaders and game changers around the world. Ben helps folks write great books in as little as 5 weeks, kill me now, enjoy 5-figure speaking fees, and attract 6-figure consulting. And that's even before publishing. Ben's trained hundreds of millionaires. And interestingly, he helped a Fortune 100 create an empathy video game, which I can't wait to hear about. Also, check this out, y'all. Ben helped launch the world's largest magazine. You've all seen it, AARP. And for now, he won a Patient Services Award from the ALS Association for creating their first mindfulness program. Ladies and gentlemen, I am super honored to welcome Ben Gioia. Welcome, Ben.
Oh, Tara, thank you so much. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. Honor, pleasure, and privilege, which is clearly easy for me to say. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So as I read your bio, I'm going to ask the question that I think probably is underneath a lot of people is, who was Ben before the magic on that bio? So let's start there a little bit with your backstory. Just tell us a little bit about Ben before this amazing success story.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Gosh, before the success story, there was a lot of mess, right? I was a big knucklehead for a really, really long time. And I say that with love, and I say that with, compassion to myself. But, I used to do a lot of drugs for a lot of years. And, drugs are tricky because if you're holding down a job and doing your thing, it's like, oh, I have no problem. And then the problem sooner or later finds its way to you in a big way. Hopefully not, it doesn't kill you, but yeah, I found my way to rock bottom at some point and decided, I had been to India for a couple of months, 1 year, and, funny story, if you will, of facing death 4 times in 72 hours, which I'll actually talk about another time. But I went back to India, during this, or as a result of this rock bottom experience. What can I do? What can I do? Let me go back to India. And I ended up volunteering, living in the Himalayas with a family, farming barley of all things. Like, oh, wow, who does that, right? Apparently these people up in northern India do. And at the end of that trip, I did a 9-day trek, or, in other words, a hike through the Himalayas. And knucklehead was, still happening for me. I showed up with, or I should say without, good hiking boots. So I had a pair of hiking boots, but they were an absolute mess, almost like smooth as silk on the bottom. I said, this is not a good idea. Tried to get new boots. Nobody has a size 13 US, in northern India. Got the boots fixed, and the fixings led to the 2 biggest blisters on each of my Achilles tendons at the beginning of the 9-day hike. And we're hiking like 6 to 8 hours a day. We're going over a 16,000 foot high pass every other day. And I am miserable from the pain in my ankles every single step. And I'm extra miserable from adding all the suffering of judgment and anger and how could you be such an idiot and da 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 da. And then day 6 comes, and I'm looking at the Himalayas. I'm like, wow, everything's so especially beautiful today. Why is it so beautiful? Like, I'm not on drugs, I know that. Why is it so beautiful? And I realized that I had been, much to my chagrin at the, previously, forced into the present moment for like 6 days straight because of every single painful step. And I suddenly went, oh, this is what they're talking about. This is why this works so well. And the rest of the trip still hurt, right? Still hurt quite a bit, but the pain was in the background now, right? And I had taken away that suffering from my experience, right? The suffering is the choice, the addition, the self-judgment, the worry, the anger, the anxiety, all that stuff. And I just got into that place of, wow, this hurts back here, but I can be present and really love what's right in front of me here.
I think that we can sign off right now. And we're all inspired. Seriously, that is just so powerful. I wonder if you mentioned the difference between pain and suffering. And is there a connection to that discovery and your current focus, which is on empathy?
Yes, thank you. There's actually a couple. Let's try to tie this all into a nice package. Right. So I'm a big fan of empathy. Empathy for leadership, for book writing, for making an impact with our messages, right? So to be able to stand in someone's shoes, as they say, or look through their eyes, have that experience, or at least, touch into the experience of another human being, even if you don't have the direct experience. But, somebody can have something really difficult or something really joyous, and you can, empathize, you can connect with them, right? And you can communicate with better, you can lead with them better, you can lead better, all those kinds of things. And the suffering part comes in, and Tara, you and I hadn't talked about this previously, but the suffering comes when you let empathy kind of run amok, right? And a lot of us do this, right? And so many people don't talk about this, right? So empathy is fantastic, powerful, so many wonderful things, and too much empathy, right, is that point when you're not holding your boundaries so well, right? And you let that other person's experience take you over. You take on that energy, you take on that grief, that anger, whatever that is, right? And many of us who are here in service in one way, shape, or form in the world, right? I'll speak for myself at least, right? I was, too much of a caregiver for so much of my life, right? And would take too much on, right? So I was navigating my own stuff and, being very intuitive, like taking on a lot of other people's stuff too. And what I learned from the teachings of the Buddha, I think it was some Tibetan teacher specifically talked about moving from empathy into compassion, right? So all the goodness of empathy, right? All the efficacy of empathy and holding that space, for your head and for your heart, right? Because if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of the people around you?
Thank you so much for putting that into words. And you're right, we didn't go there. And I kind of wanted to last time when we did our little prep talk, because I think that I think that you're speaking to just millions of people who either personally relate or they have family members who relate. And I imagine that, and then we're going to definitely get around to your Stanford story and the magic side. But I imagine that because it touches, my son found alcohol because he was so much of an empath, he just could not cope. And I wonder if there was a connection to your drug use and your extreme natural empath tendencies.
I think so. And from people I've spoken to over the years, professional and otherwise, I think so as well. Drugs can appear to be a beautiful thing, right? Because they give us a chance to step out of, our mind in the moment.
Suffering.
Yes, away from the suffering. And even if it's, ultimately repressing the suffering, right? It gives us a chance to step away. And, I think there's a lot of us in our generation, and I'll, expand that length of time quite a bit, who are and still are highly intuitive, highly empathetic, but so few of our parents and teachers had any clue how to navigate any of that, right? So we're dealing with all of like the normal things, if you will, and this whole other level of stuff that very few people had the space to really hold, right? So we have the, hooray, the gift and opportunity to actually heal that at this point. And, the beautiful thing about all of those difficulties, is that the stuff we heal, we can turn around and, share the wisdom of that, right? Share that hard-earned wisdom.
Yes. Thank you. So, and it feels like today, and I'm putting words in your mouth so you can say, no, that's not what I do. But after listening to you, I feel like that you're now able to teach empathy as a superpower, like really how to balance it to your advantage.
Yeah, thank you. I'll take those words. Thank you. Those are great. It's I appreciate you saying that, because as several of you know and have heard already, right, I help people write books. And it's not just writing books, but it's writing books that help people tell their story, share their message, right, make an impact with their business. And I help people make sure that they're writing books that are going to work for their business, right? And this will all connect in a moment. The most important thing you can do for your book, for your business, for your podcast, anything that you're creating, right, is talk to the people that you're making it for before you make it, so you make it right. So you make it in the way that they need it, right? So talk to your ideal clients about the book you're writing before you write it, so you have the lens and you can get it done, and that the book is going to work, right? So those conversations with your ideal clients, understanding their challenges and goals and dreams and fears and doubts and all that stuff, what better platform and environment, to cultivate empathy with people, to really, listen and hear and understand, and not coach and not advise and not do anything else, but just be a witness to the people that you serve, right? Get in, in their head, in their experience, and then be able to express that, literally the words that they're sharing with you in the pages of your book, in your marketing, in your podcast. Because when people hear those words, they're going to go, wow, you really get me, right? You really understand what I'm about.
Absolutely. What an important piece of communicating out to the world is to listen first. And that's what you're telling us to do, is just listen, record, and make sure that you're speaking to what needs to be heard. So I do want to pivot, to use an overused word, into the story that proves your ability to help people do what you did. And that's the phone call you got from Stanford. So give us a little background and tell us that story.
Yeah, thank you. So about 5 years into my business, things weren't going that great. And I was pivoting my business to be called, let me use that word again, right? Influence with a heart instead of marketing with a heart, which is what it was previously. So I update my LinkedIn profile, literally just the business name. Somebody reaches out to me and they say, hey, we're hosting a 2-day training at Stanford University for visiting business people. People are going to tour around Silicon Valley, to Twitter, to Google, to LinkedIn, and then they're going to come here. Do you want to teach them for 2 days about leadership and influence? And I was like, of course I do, right? Like, big coup. So we work it all out. We've signed the contract. We get everything lined up, and the person says, we're really excited to have you. I said, I'm really excited. I want to make this really special for your people, really make it memorable. I'm going to show up with autographed copies of my brand new book for everyone in the audience and your staff, right? So this is like 130 people. And she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. They're going to love it. So you're very welcome. We hang up the phone and I went, oh crap. I have to write that book that I just promised right now, because from the promise to the actual event, I had 6.5 weeks.
Crazy.
Yes, exactly. So constructed it, created it in 3 weeks, got it produced in 3, showed up to the event with autographed books, right? Expedited the heck out of everything. The event went great. The event planning company hired me for several more events. The company in the audience hired me to speak at their headquarters in Sydney, Australia the following year, which was super cool. And then if we go back in time a minute, as I was frantically creating the book, I had somebody design a 3D digital version of the cover, right? Like, and this is what I say to all my authors, like, start talking about the book you're writing before it's done, and leverage the fact that you're writing a book. And if you can design the cover, right? So I designed the cover, I put it up on LinkedIn, again, our friend LinkedIn, right? And I said, look, I'm writing a book, it's coming soon. Somebody else reached out and they're like, hey, we're creating this mindfulness and empathy video game with a Fortune 100 company and MIT. It's going to be played by 20,000 people around the world. Would you like to write the curriculum? And I went, of course I'd like to write the curriculum. Had I ever written a curriculum? No. Right. But whatever, several factors. And I did have the word empathy in the subtitle of one of my books. And I think that was a big draw for them.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about this book that you wrote in 6.5 weeks, or you wrote it in 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah. So it's called Influence with a Heart, How to Be a Better Leader and Communicator by Using More Empathy, Story, and Thought Leadership. Right. Yeah. Thank you. And basically I just, I stayed really tight to the, to that title and subtitle throughout the book. And I just unpacked it bit by bit and, just reminded people, of very straightforward things like connect with people, talk to people, listen to them, understand what they need, find out how you can help them. Right. And then, what I often will tell people, right, because sometimes people hear about empathy, they're like, how do I do that? I don't know. It sounds complex. And I say, very simple. Ask people to share their stories with you and share your story with them, right? And then you're creating, I think I called it at some point, reciprocal empathy, right? Right, so stories being the key to all of it, because stories are really one of the oldest forms of human communication, even before the cave paintings.
Absolutely. I want to bring Catherine into our conversation, but before I do, I'm going to press on your memory here. I would love for you to share a moment when either you saw like a light bulb moment for one of your clients, like they really understood the power of empathy, or some transformational moment from one of your clients.
Oh gosh. So one of my clients wrote a book called Being Brown in a Black and White World.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so she's a DEI consultant, I forget all the other letters in
Diversity,
there.
equity, and inclusion.
Yes, thank you. And then there's a few more on the end of it now, depending on who you're talking to. But anyway, she wrote a book called Being Brown in a Black and White World, right? Because, she's mixed race person. She came to one of my events, after writing the book, just as a guest, and she said she got on the video with everybody. She says, Ben, I got to tell you this story. right? I just found this out. She's like, somebody at Google read my book and they asked me to come speak and they're going to pay me. She had no idea who the person was, no relationship whatsoever, right? And somebody found her book and brought her in the mix, right? So, the level of dream, that she wanted to achieve, without necessarily specific direction toward, the Google outcome, and, her heart actions, persistence and intention were all in the right directions. And that's what came up for her.
Those are the moments when it just really makes your work. I mean, you feel how much it matters to others. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And congratulations to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Catherine, I know you're chomping at the bit to ask questions, so I want to invite you to do that.
I know my biggest challenge is which one. I have so many, but I think the one, I'm going to be selfish, the one I want to really know the answer to the most is, they say that we teach what we need to learn. And I'm imagining writing a book is very similar. And you've said that you need to go to your ideal clients, what do they want to hear, but how would you talk to somebody that says, hey, I want to write a book, but it's really what I need to hear. I need to do this for myself. I need to figure this out through my own journey. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, thank you. So I think everybody that I've helped with their books has said that in some way, shape, or form, right? Because it's so important for people who are experts and authorities and thought leaders, right, who want to make an impact. Like, they need to tell their story, they want to tell their story, and they recognize the efficacy of telling their story, right? Because it gives their audience, their reader, their listener an opportunity to connect. Like, we're back to the empathy, right? And I say absolutely 1,000%. And you can't just write a book because you know stuff and put it out there and expect things to happen, right? If anybody remembers Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner, right? If you build it, they will come. Absolutely not.
Right.
That
Heard that.
That does not work with your book, right? I mean, maybe if you have a tremendous following, sure, right? But otherwise, right, that does not work with your book. So I say to people, yes, tell your story. Yes, share your expertise, and talk to your ideal clients about the book you're writing so you can have the lens through which to present the book, right? Because if you rock up and say, hey, this is what you need, people are like, I don't need Jack, don't talk to me, right? But if you meet people at what they want, get them in the door, then give them what they need, that's where the magic happens.
I love that. Yeah, I've heard sell them what they want, give them what they need, kind of a thing, so yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. I have more questions, but I want to open it up. I don't want to be terribly selfish. So let's open it up to the group and see what else is out there. This has been awesome, Ben. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey,
Tom.
Tom.
Good morning, Ben. Thanks for joining. This is really
Pleasure.
inspiring.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, on empathy and compassion, and I think your Stanford story running the book may touch on this. I've always been curious, group level or even like strategic empathy, is a concept that I've heard versus like one-on-one, individual relationship level. How do you approach like group level empathy versus, at the individual level? I think if I heard you correctly, you're talking about Stanford and the book you wrote with, storytelling and thought leadership. It seems to touch on this broader type group, but how do you think of, group level empathy?
So in essence, try to approach it the same way, right? That a group is a bunch of individuals, right? So, we hear in marketing and communication, right? Try to talk to the individual, right? Try to write your book to the individual. So that's one part of it. Some of it is tactically. Let me use the training at Stanford for an example. I worked a bunch with the event planner before the event to really understand about the audience, right? So, I grilled the heck out of her multiple times, right? I had her filling out forms, really, really understood what was going on. And I mean, I had her going back to the core company. So as much as I could glean from the front end, I did. At the end of the event, I had a pretty comprehensive survey, right, to my audience, to understand as much as I could, about them, about the experience. And, throughout the event, I just tried to be as responsive as I could be to the audience. And for me, when I teach stuff, I'm all about throwing people in breakout rooms or groups, right? Having them share, and then having them come back in the room and having them share in the group with me, right? So to give that opportunity for hearing and listening among the group, and then giving people the opportunity in their speaking and unpacking, to find what they need to find, because sometimes people got to talk a little bit before they get to the nugget for themselves, right? And then by time hopefully we're back in the room, then I have a really, really good sense of what's happening for those people right now. It could be a big thing, it could be a little thing, but I will then try to move some of my understanding into the next segment or something that I say. So I have a notepad on the podium with me as well, and I'm just talk about this, remind this, say this story, right? I'll think of a story that might be applicable. So I really appreciate this question, because I'm going to think more about that too. But how about for now? I think that's what I do.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah, that research and trying to really understand the audience as best you can. I think that, that's great insight. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And this makes me wonder too, as I imagine you in an event setting with breakout groups and working with folks. Do you have any specific strategies for how you help your audience to keep the transformation and the learning alive once you're gone?
Yeah, thank you. So we do a lot of hands-on stuff during the event, right? So a lot of writing, a lot of workshopping, if you will. It doesn't necessarily have to be great lengths, but how do we integrate the stuff, on paper, right? The whole, hand to brain connection or hand to brain connection, depending on how people are doing it. The feedback and the breakouts and the reflection and sharing, is a great way to just kind of reinforce and reaffirm and have people witnessed in, their discoveries. As I mentioned before, at the end, I do a pretty comprehensive feedback form survey, if you will, but a lot of it is geared, a lot of it doubles as a reflection on the event. What did you learn? What were your biggest takeaways? Those kinds of things. And then, excuse me, on the back end, I strongly encourage people to, take that next step, right? Whether it's come write a book, get the book done, get it published, get a podcast, do the podcast, whatever makes sense. Because, I was a hospice volunteer for 3 years in San Francisco about 10 years ago, and one of the biggest regrets of the dying, right, of the top 5 is like, essentially I didn't take my shot doing the thing. And we have no idea. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make it till tomorrow. I mean, I think so. I hope so. But there's really no guarantee. So, what can we do now as soon as possible? So get, for example, I say to my authors, get your book done as quickly as possible, but don't rush. Right.
Oh.
Take your shot right now, but don't go crazy. Right.
Yeah. I, as you know, am writing a book. And I think we're going on 3 years here, but I'm close. So you and I are going to talk about that soon. I can't wait. We are close to the end of time. Let's see, taking the opportunity to share one more time that I am writing a book within 1 year. Oh, that's from Andrea in the chat. Awesome. Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. Andrea, Ben is moving soon to Spain. So you can, if you guys connect, you guys can also communicate in Spanish.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I will search you out and connect you in LinkedIn. Of course.
Yes, wonderful. Before we run out of time, I do want to ask you, I know you talked about an upcoming event and also a gift you wanted to share. So I'm going to have my happy fingers ready with the chat and you talk to us.
Thank you. So real quick, thank you for letting me share both of these. First weekend of November, 3rd, 4th, and 5th is the podcast and book roadmap, literally podcastandbook.com. And it's all around, basically standing out as a thought leader using a podcast or book, how simple and straightforward it really is, if there is a plan and you do the right things. So we map out the plan, and also have some guest speakers who are teaching about podcasts themselves, about the publishing process and the right choices to make, about TV talk shows, which are essentially things like this, right? So that event is fantastic.
Sorry, I'm not sure I typed it in correctly. Is it just podcastandbook.com?
Yes, you are correct. Thank you.
Okay, let me try this one more time.
You did it. So yeah, wonderful event, great speakers, great content, and fabulous opportunities for networking. And I talked a lot about hands-on workshop-y stuff. We go deep in there. So you will be.
And it's virtual, right?
It is virtual. Thank you.
And is it all day, every day, or?
A couple hours on Friday, optional gathering, and then just 6 hours each Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
Right? So a very reasonable pace, right? So we can still have some rest on our weekends.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Go ahead. One of our tenets is giving, and I know you said you had something special to give as well.
I do. Thank you. So testimonials, book reviews, right? LinkedIn reviews. It's really good to have social proof, right? Other people talking about how cool you are, how wonderful you are, right? So if you all aren't doing this, make sure you're getting testimonials from people. You'd be like, well, Ben, I try to get testimonials and people don't do them, or they don't do a good job, blah, 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 blah. The gift is a template for testimonials. So you write the testimonial, right? You send it to the person and you say, hey, I'd love a testimonial. I know you're super busy. I wrote this on your behalf. Could you either bless it, edit it, or write your own?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so because
Idea.
most of the time people do honestly want to help, and then they just get caught up in all the busyness, right? So make it easy for them. And I'll put the link in the chat here.
Oh, great. Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. It's bookreviews.cc, right? So bookreviews.cc.
All right. Thank you very much. So if you have any last words, then we're going to close us out.
Thank you. I would just say, if you're not already doing it, smile as much as you can throughout your day, because it will change your life. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that coming. I love that. Thank you. We are so grateful for you. I am going to close us out with our 7 tenets. And the first of those is love. To just infuse love into all that you do, say, and the next of these is to give. Be generous with your time, your talents, and your heart, and your empathy. Be generous and give. Also, remember to let yourself not take life too seriously, laugh out loud, and let those endorphins fly. And we want you to stress less. And it will help you to do that if you can get your sleep, get more sleep, eat mostly plants, and absolutely never forget to move the body that the universe gave you. Until next time, thank you, Daily Huddlers. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much, Ben.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you so
Tim.
much, man. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.